New York native. It's great to have you. I guess we're doing arms crossed now.
Whatever you want, man.
Yeah, I guess this is your city, man.
It is. Well, yeah, not technically my borough, but yeah, New York City.
Extra live version, considering they're all live.
This is an extra live version of the A-side. That is Esther Lynn speaking off camera. Casey Leiden behind the camera as usual. I always enjoy doing these extra live episodes of the A-side live chat here on MMAfighting.com. But of course, this is your live chat. You can ask our questions in the comment section of the site, or you can use hashtag the A-side on Twitter. We will not miss any of the Twitter questions this time because I get that so much greasiness thrown my way for skipping Twitter questions. But Esther is going to read the questions this time, so I'm not going to miss any. And we're not going to have audio problems because I'm not controlling the camera this time. So there's no reason for you guys to comment on my Instagram about that. Don't tag me in audio memes. Don't comment on my Instagram. Don't tweet at me about audio, okay? I don't know what Casey's looking at right now. I see what you're doing. He's trying to make the camera go, whatever, dude. Whatever. There's no problems on my end. So you can tweet at Casey, at EKC, because it's not my... Yeah, see, look what he's doing right now. Casey's acting a fool. He's just a buffoon behind the camera right now. Hey, come over and show us the guns, Casey.
I'm not that... I don't have an on-camera talent.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but we don't have the mustache. Like, well, he has a good mustache. But anyway, we're going to get right into the questions. We are here. It's UFC 244 Fight Week. We're on scene for all of your Fight Week festivities. We hear The Rock might even be around. Who knows? It's going to be quite the time. But, Esther, first question from our lovely commenters.
Okay, well, nothing's yet green. So I'm going to go ahead and say from Greb77, right? Every MMA fan will agree that Diaz versus Masvidal is the perfect matchup for the bad motherfucker title.
Mm-hmm.
You just know that those two are the realist. But if you were to break it down, what exactly makes them such bad motherfuckers? And who else would be on your bad motherfucker shortlist? Nick Diaz, Lee Murray, maybe?
Lee Murray is... Man... What a reference. Yeah, Lee Murray's kind of on another level of bad motherfucker, honestly. He's kind of a horrifying figure. But yeah, Danny, so of course the headline act of UFC 244 is Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz for the bad motherfucker title. I've been asked this a lot, like what makes a bad motherfucker. Mm-hmm. So I'll go to you first. You've interviewed Jorge Masvidal a few times. What is the definition of a bad motherfucker inside the octagon? And then who else would you put into that category?
That's a tricky one because I feel like it could mean a lot of things. I think the easy one to tackle would be sort of, although, it's 305, 209, West Coast gangster, East Coast gangster. They're both street. That's, at their core. So they are bad motherfuckers, and they've been bad motherfuckers since day one. Like, they'll throw down, just look up Nate Diaz street fight and you'll find a good amount of content online, as well as Jorge Masvidal. So I think that's one as well. But I think something that's being contested here that people don't really, maybe not paying too much attention or flying under the radar, is the fact that these guys, win or lose, they always go in there to cause damage. They always go in there to try to finish at all times. And they, all the time, if you hear them talk throughout history of their interviews, they always hate on wrestling. They almost see wrestling as a non-combative form. But it's not really that they hate wrestling, because they're actually both really good grapplers themselves. Right, yeah. It's really more like they hate the idea of wrestlers using positions to win fights. And ultimately, that's not what wins fights in their heart. They're like, all right, if you have wrestling, all right, use that to cause damage. Use that to beat me up. So ultimately, we're looking at two fighters that have prioritized causing damage and looking over, and trying to finish a fight at all times over, positional advantage and, control, which is, usually favored in this modern MMA system. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, we're looking at two finishers here. We're looking at two guys that will put that above anything, even if it means costing them L's in the record. And if you go down their wiki page, you can, that speaks for itself.
I think what someone in our comment section for UFC Boston, because I asked Jeremy Stevens about this, and Jeremy Stevens might be one of those fighters you can add into. Yeah. Someone says, "Oh, it's a fighter with a 500 record and a bad attitude." That's not my definition at all. No, I just kind of laughed because these are, if you look at their records, they don't have the most stellar records. But like you said, even in their fights, they're trying to do damage, whether they get the win or the loss. Like, they're just going in there for a fight. They're not trying to point fight anyone, and that might backfire on them in the long run.
I think that's an accurate definition if you're kind of looking at it from a negative or a sinister standpoint of view. But ultimately, that's what it is. Like, win or lose, they don't care. They're in there to fight you. They're in there to mess you up. If that gets them the victory, great. You know, they get a few, some extra money, a win in their record. But if they lose, they're not going to stall to get a win. You know, that's not in their vocabulary. So I remember I asked Jeremy Stevens when I was in Mexico, and when I was asking the question, I knew it was silly, but sometimes you gotta ask stupid stuff to get good answers. So I asked him, I'm like, hey, you know, we just saw, you know, Jeremy Yair Rodriguez and KZ, fantastic fight. KZ was up on the scorecards. Look, if he would have, you know, take the foot off the pedal for 1 second, he already put on an exciting fight. Like, you know, just those last 5 seconds, if he would have just chilled, it would have made the fight a dud, right? So when you go in there and knowing what Jair Rodriguez can do, are you going with that mentality of maybe, you know, being a little more careful? And he cut me off and he's like, yo, you're not speaking my language. Like, I'm in there full throttle and just, you know, going there to fight like 100% all the time. So, yeah, whether that costs them a win or a loss, like that's not into play. They're in there to cause damage, and that's ultimately what a bad motherfucker is.
So who would you add to this list? I can think of Jeremy Stevens. This is off the top of my head. I think
there are plenty.
Robbie Lawler, I think I would put into that category. Who's that fighter that talks about getting shot in the face and then he like spit out the bullets? He was in Abu Dhabi. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but he got shot.
That sounds pretty badass.
He was in England and he got shot, spit out the bullets, and then went to the hospital. I can't remember who he fought. He fought to a draw, I believe, on the Abu Dhabi card. But there are a lot of fighters. I put Korean Zombie on that list. That dude's trying to kill anyone.
100%. There's also different levels of it, and there's different components. Like I said, the one in the cage, also your lifestyle. Like, dude, Nate Diaz will throw down wherever, whenever. Same thing with Jorge Masvidal. I mean, the whole three piece with the soda. So I would add Mike Perry there. An honorable mention that is forgotten, and Nate Diaz actually brought him up. Josh Neer, the dentist.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is Lerone Murphy. You're thinking of
Lerone Murphy. He's the one that spit out the bullets.
There's a good amount.
I think Darren Till got stabbed once before he fought, and even I talked to Tyron Woodley at UFC 227. He goes, "This is the first fighter that I fought that's like been stabbed in like a real fight." So I'm not gonna say anything that's gonna scare that guy. Or what about someone like Brian Stan, who's actually like face down army tanks in the desert and had to go to combat?
Look, if
you wrestled, he's not a bad motherfucker. We all know that.
Bottom line, if you're in the UFC, you're a bad motherfucker.
I think
period. Right, but there's just different levels.
You gotta add Justin Gaethje to that list too.
Justin Gaethje as well.
Donald Cerrone has
Ryan Hall.
Cerrone.
Cerrone has the BMF ranch. He was kind of the BMF before.
Exactly.
Our cameraman Casey wants to include Ryan Hall to that list.
The baddest motherfucker out there.
I guess so. What about Artem Lobov?
That's a bad motherfucker as well.
That's a bad motherfucker.
500 record.
And who beat him? Ryan Hall.
Yeah. Then we got to add everyone else to that list, right? Like Cub Swanson's got it. Well, Cub Swanson.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's different levels to it, but some fighters more than others. Again, you just mentioned Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler is of that nature as well, but he also fights smart. And I'm not saying, you know, BMF doesn't fight smart, but he's also aware of, look, I need to do this to win this round. Whereas Nate Diaz, look, he's in there to mess you up at all times, whether they cost him the round or not.
Someone says, "Shut up, Casey," about the Ryan Hall comment.
Oh, is that Artem Lobov?
Probably. It's not. I can't pronounce this individual's name, but any female fighters you want to add to this BMF list?
Oh, dude, Livinha Souza. That's one of the most badass female fighters on the planet. Like she goes in there to scrap, and she also has like a little like thug street style to her.
Wasn't she the one that was like, "I'm not here to sell bikinis, I'm here to break bones," or something like that before her last fight?
She also learned English only from listening to hip hop.
Yeah,
dude,
rap songs. Yeah. She's badass, and she has this little flow and this little swag that I like. She's badass as well. Who else? I mean, there's a bunch of them. Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Yeah, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is Rose. Thug Rose.
Thug Rose as well.
She's trained at the BMF ranch regardless with Donald Cerrone. So I think there's going to be, off the top of my head, there's a lot in the lightweight division. I think that's been the most stacked division. So Anthony Pettis, he's seen some crazy stuff in his lifetime.
Shit,
so you guys let us know who else is on the BMF list, because I'm seeing a lot of the
Obviously,
stuff we're saying.
I think we clearly missed somebody. AK Lee as well.
The bad boy? Nah.
That is one of the baddest motherfuckers I've ever met.
If you guys see Alex K. Lee, ask him how he got his scars. You don't like that's a story in and
That's
of
a scary
itself.
story. It'll give you nightmares.
That's a terrifying story. But any you want to add, Esther, to the BMF list?
Yeah. No, but I wanted to get to the next follow-up question.
All right, go to the next follow. Hit us with the follow-up.
Okay, Hardy Har has a very good related question. Okay, of that idea, right, of that list you have in your mind, what current fighters would do well under the true BMF rules? The rules of UFC 1, nobody, no eye gouging, no groin shots, and no time limit.
So just a fight.
Yeah, no holds barred.
So no weight cutting.
Who would do, no weight cutting, who would do well in no holds barred?
I mean, I think you got to look at people that have great cardio and durability, because you're in for a long fight, right? There's no rounds. There's no.
I think Robbie Lawler would do pretty damn
as well. Robbie Lawler would be a great one. I mean, the two guys fighting in the main event of UFC 244 are great picks.
Yeah. Does GSP still count? He wants like 25-minute rounds. I remember he said that once.
He's a lot of wrestling based though.
I mean, Michael.
The question was for current fighters, actually.
Current fighters. I mean, pretty much everyone just engaged would do damn well. Habib, he has cardio for days. And he can just grind you into the canvas. He's not gonna need like if he doesn't have to cut weight either. He just comes in and just throws down like he's wrestled a bear. For crying out loud.
I mean, I think Demetrius Johnson would do fantastic. I mean, he would end his fights looking just as he would enter the first round. Like, I mean, he would do flips and push-ups right after his fights.
But if there's no weight,
if
there's no weight classes, could he fight like a Daniel Cormier? Like, they get matched up like DJ versus Daniel Cormier? Because Daniel Cormier would do real well if that's the case. Because he has great cardio, great wrestling, good striking. Yeah, he got like Stipe would do well. Like, are we including all of these guys? Like, is Greg Hardy all of a sudden not cutting weight?
Cain
coming
Velasquez?
In like 280? Well, he's
I know,
retired WWE superstar.
Damon would like to suggest Tony Ferguson would be good at it.
Tony Ferguson would be damn.
That's a bad motherfucker.
He could he could head stomp you from his back. Who's the guy that
Nico
does?
Price?
Yeah, Nico Price. That's what I was trying to. Yeah, Nico Price would do real well. I think Tony Ferguson would be my pick. Cardio for days.
Yeah, it's a guy that's always looking to do damage. Extremely durable, tough, skilled on the ground, on the feet. Yeah, that's a guy that if there's no time limit, I think he's one of the fighters that would benefit the most out of not having time limit.
But then what if like Tony Ferguson, and if this is a tournament style UFC 1-esque matchup, like what if the finals is like Tony Ferguson and like Francis Ngannou? Is he just gonna get slept?
Dude,
like right away?
I wouldn't rule out Tony Ferguson out of any fight.
Didn't he challenge Francis Ngannou?
He just challenged John Jones.
Oh, John Jones.
Yeah, John
Apparently,
Jones. Like,
I think I haven't looked this up, but I think they might have wrestled in college because he said something like, "Oh, I'm willing to go up 2 weight classes again and take you on, just like the old days," something like that. So maybe I'm wrong.
So then, if that's Tony Ferguson versus Verdun. Yeah, someone says
ankle pick.
Someone says we gotta add Valentina to the BMF list.
Yes.
She's a bad motherfucker. And someone says Clay Guida would be a bad motherfucker.
Valentina goes the opposite of what you said. She will. Do we not see Liz Carmouche? Was that a bad motherfucker fight?
No.
So what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Her bad motherfucker stuff is outside of the cage.
Yeah. Like when we spoke to her at UFC 238 when Jessica I wore the bulletproof vest and she's like she's not protecting her head, and then she kicked her in the head.
Yeah.
And knocked her dead. Like I don't know how much more badass it gets than that.
No, but again, Valentina will do things, in my opinion, in order to secure a round, to win fights. I mean, Casey brought up a good example with the Liz Carmouche fight. Yeah. And look, she's badass, don't get me wrong, but I think there needs to be, not a crazy element, but there needs to be a little bit of like, I really don't care if I lose, I'm here to like mess you up.
She's just here to break Rick.
She actually cares about winning or losing.
Yeah, actually that does matter, because then otherwise you would include all of the players. And then there's no list.
Yeah. I think I would make Francis Ngannou like the most bad motherfucker heavyweight at the moment, though. Well, Derek Lewis is pretty wild, too.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Lewis is a bad motherfucker.
Yeah, he also...
But he also had that weird
a
fight.
BMF is tied to Iwasan.
That's true.
He will put... Look, Junior Dos Santos was ground and pound... Mounted him, was ground and pounding. The dude was still swinging. Like, look, I'm going to go out, but I'm going to at least try to punch in the face once.
Yeah, Taito Iwasa is up there.
He's willing to cause damage and doesn't really... I mean, he cares about winning or losing. Obviously, everybody does, but...
He's had a couple bad losses, but Yair in Boston, I asked him, because Jeremy Stevens like, I'll fight this guy in the parking lot, this and that, and Yair was like, man, you don't even know what I've seen growing up. Like a fist fight is nothing. And then I go, what have you seen? He goes, I don't want to tell you on camera. Like he wouldn't even talk about it on camera. So you got to add Yair to that list.
Yeah,
that dude's a bad motherfucker.
So in conclusion, everyone is a bad motherfucker.
Not you, and not Valentina.
Yeah,
I guess those two. You and Valentina can just go worry about winning.
Wow. All right. Well, this is a sort of related question. Mean Look would like to know, how do you think Jorge will handle the pressure of Diaz? And do you see Jorge being able to exploit Diaz's weaknesses? This goes back to the bad motherfucker question, leg kicks, wrestling, etc. Because Diaz obviously has very clear weaknesses, but to go after them would cut into his title as a bad motherfucker.
I think Jorge Masvidal fight he's one of like what's that reality show he was on?
Telemundo?
Yeah, he said coming off that show he realized like he was like trying to win, and now he doesn't even care about winning. He's just trying to do damage and hit the off button.
Yeah.
So, but I think he's like what Justin Gaethje is now. He's like smart. He's like intelligent violence. Like he's not just gonna throw wildly. He's gonna attack weak points, but do damage. He's not gonna hit your leg and run away. He's just gonna batter it and batter and batter and then knock you out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's still a certain element of like you know, these guys train and they're clearly like elite fighters. So they approach the fight as elite fighters, which means you have to fight smart. But although with that mentality of like, look, I'm here to whoop your ass. This is a tricky one. When Pettis fought Diaz, I thought that fight was going to be very telling of where Diaz was at, because clearly we knew that Pettis was really, really good at kicking. Amazing leg kicks, right? Just his background, he uses a lot of kicks. I mean, he became Anthony Pettis off a kick, right? So I was curious to see how Nate Diaz was going to look in that matchup, because we know that leg kicks have been an issue with him, but he was cutting the distance, and whenever Diaz threw a kick, whenever Pettis threw a kick, he was, he threw hands to make sure, like, hey, look, you might hit me with a leg kick, but I'm going to punch you in the face. So I think Diaz has been a little smart and adapted to that as well. So I think we're going to mainly see boxing here. And how is he going to do with Diaz pressure? I don't know. I mean, this is a really good matchup. I'm on the fence about it.
You think Masvidal just sprints out of his corner again?
No. Because Diaz is not going to go for a takedown.
It's true.
People forget he did the same thing against Till.
Didn't Masvidal get dropped in like 30 seconds?
Oh, yeah.
He did a kick. He did a spinning kick or something. And
then Masvidal got dropped in like the first 30 seconds of that fight.
He did.
And then he was like laughing when he got dropped. So it's a bad motherfucker right there.
Yeah.
Laughing at Darren Till.
That's going to be a good one. That's going to be a good fight. I'm still on the fence
about
it.
50. I haven't made my mind up yet. But the pressure is like the main question. I don't think Masvidal is going to have an issue with it, because he's got cardio for days too.
He's got good cardio. He's got good pressure as well. And early in his career, like when he faced guys like Ali Quinta and a few others, he's also good at fighting on the back foot and countering, slipping.
Yeah.
And so he might even welcome the pressure. Up to how much extent, obviously, because that involves, usually that doesn't look good on the eyes of the judges. We don't know, but I think he'll handle it well, and that's what's going to be exciting. I think I'll say this is going to be one of the most high output fights in UFC history. That's what I expect.
Oh, well, that's not even a question. I think the big thing is if Nate his fight against the second fight against Conor, and then the fight against Pettis, he would press into the octagon, the cage, and like stick his forehead in your chest and just like dirty box you against that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to have that success against Masvidal, because he's obviously bigger than Conor, and then I think obviously Nate is slightly bigger than Pettis. I don't think he's going to be able to like bully Masvidal into the octagon.
Yeah. Well, that I think we might even see that, because the Diaz have these things where they put you up against the cage, they dig their forehead onto your chest, and they go 3-6, 3-6 right to the body, and then as soon as you cover up to the body, they come up with either a 3 or a 6 up top. That's like vintage Nick Diaz. That's just the Diaz army, and they've been doing that for a long time. So we'll see. But again, Masvidal trains with really good wrestlers, and he's been forced against the cage for years, and he's dealt with that as well. But it's going to be a good one. I don't know, man.
I'm really hoping this first round is reminiscent of Nick Diaz and Paul Daly.
It could be. Yeah.
The greatest one-round
fight.
The greatest
ever. One.
That's one of my favorite fights.
That's up there. I mean, Cerrone Gallard was bananas too. And wasn't Shaq Congo Pat Barry one round?
Yeah, but it was just sloppy. This was like a great
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That body shot. That's the fight that made Dana White like fall in love with Strikeforce.
That's when UFC had already purchased Strikeforce.
Because Dana White was there with a
Yeah.
Strikeforce shirt. He was just like, what's happening? It's like watching.
Yeah.
That's what I'm holding this fight to. That's the standard I'm holding this fight to.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's one of the greatest fights ever. Top 5 Jose fights.
All right. We will change topics now and go to our own Guillermo wrote this morning that Paulo Costa confirms that he won't be ready until next April. So with him out, who do you think should get the next middleweight title shot?
I want personally, like if it's up to Jose, I want to see him fight Jared Cannonier because I think that fight is amazing, and it's two very. It's like Israel Adesanya, who's like this big anime weeb who does crazy dancing and is very flashy, and then Jared Cannonier, who's very humble and is super in. I don't know. I know you've watched the A-side the last few weeks. He's super into crystals, I love everything about it. This is now the 3rd week in a row we've talked about crystals on the A side, and I won't stop until someone gives me crystals for the A side. He walks around with like pyrite around his neck, so just for the sheer fact, I want those two very interesting characteristics. But realistically, I bet it's Romero, just because Israel Adesanya said he wants to fight him. Romero put out that clip. He said, "I'll see you soon." Israel Adesanya put out that screenshot of his I think it's his text with Eugene, his coach. And Eugene was like, "Let's fight Romero." Like, silence the doubters. And Israel was like, I'm exactly what I'm thinking. So if I'm a betting man, I say Romero. But personally, I want to see Crystal Captain Jared Cannonier.
If we're talking about the most deserving, I think Cannonier has put up. He has a nice little streak at middleweight. He probably deserves the fight the most. But again, Yoel Romero's coming off a very controversial fight against Paulo Costa, who was supposed to fight next, right? A lot of people thought Yoel Romero won, including myself. So I wouldn't hate either or. I think either or presents great challenges for the champion. Ultimately, what you want to see is the champion get different types of looks, right, to prove that he's the best. I think both offer different things that they haven't seen, that Adesanya hasn't seen throughout his career. From an action standpoint, I'd like to see Romero fight. To be honest, I know he's gotten like 1 million title shots, but I feel like that's probably the sexier fight for me.
So
if we're gonna go off deserving, I think Cannonier is the guy.
I'll throw a name at you because a lot of people were on Twitter going over this. Our friends over at Submission Radio, I saw them yesterday. They're convinced that if Darren Till beats Kelvin Gastelum, it's going to be Darren Till, Israel Adesanya. Just because Darren Till is a popular fighter. He's from the UK. You could do like the UK versus like the New Zealand area. You could put that in like a big... Like, I don't know if it'll be a stadium show, but it'll be like a high selling against two popular, exciting, striking fighters. I don't know if that happens, but I've now seen that a lot on Twitter. If Darren Till wins in exciting fashion over Kelvin Gastelum. Yeah,
some are treating this fight kind of like as a number 1 contender, right? I've seen some comments, but I don't think it happens. I mean, if you look at on the side of Gastelum, he just fought Adesanya, so you don't want to fight back to back again, like. Just doesn't make any sense. And as far as Till, I really don't think that'll happen, in my opinion. For this fight with Gastelum, Dana White was against it. He was like, look, don't fight Gastelum, fight somebody else. This is not a good idea. Gastelum still, Till was like, no, I'm down, this is the fight. And the fight got made. So fighting Adesanya, he beat up Gastelum. So that's just another step of rushing. I think... if he gets a win over Gastelum, look, you got back in the win column. You clearly beat a top middleweight. You're in the mix, but let's slow things down. I really don't think he'd get a shot.
I think it depends on how the fight even plays out. If Darren Till just goes out there and just like
smokes him
in like under a minute, like they're gonna try and I bet they try and make that fight. But then again, it could be a 3-round war and they both get 6 months medical suspension. So I hate doing this matchup thing because I didn't know I thought Paulo Costa was going to fight him in February, March. Now he has surgery on his bicep, so who knows how healthy they're going to be after this fight anyway. 3 rounds, when's the last time Kelvin fought 3 rounds? Was it the Jacare fight maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
I think, and then he had those long layoffs. He had the fight against Izzy. That was one of the greatest title fights I've ever seen. So let's see how the fight plays out first. Because if Darren Till just crushes Kelvin in under a minute, and Israel Adesanya couldn't do that. We're all playing hypothetical what ifs here.
No, I'm saying if it happens, I still don't think he gets a shot, to be honest.
I bet it becomes a thing after that. Like, if he calls him out and then Israel's like, yeah, let's do it, like this and that. Who knows? It's all hypothetical nonsense. It's the middleweights. Paulo Costas will fight the winner of whoever. But Casey, what do you think? I know you're nodding and shaking your head over there, so I don't know what you want.
Till squeaks out a decision.
Sure.
He goes, I want a title shot. Dana goes, I'm not going to give it to you. And then Till goes, please. He goes, okay. But I don't want it, guys. And then they're going to do Till Izzy.
Yep. See, it's a popular fight.
Because then Dana's going to go, I didn't want to give it to him. I didn't want to give him Kelvin. Like you're not the boss. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay,
Jared Cannonier, though, Crystal Captain.
Jared Cannonier is clearly the right choice.
Yeah.
But nothing is ever right.
What is right?
What is right?
What even is?
Okay, well, let's keep going with this title picture discussion. Lodovic would like to know, Jones doesn't seem to be interested in Reyes, nor is he calling out any heavyweights. So does Johnny Walker have a shot at becoming the #1 contender on Saturday? What is your take on the fight? What do you expect to happen? Anyone else in the mix for the title? Since Jones keeps shooting everybody down.
I think it's gonna come down to how Johnny Walker wins, because John Jones is on record numerous times where it's these fighters that people keep bringing up over and over and over that get him excited. Like, I remember when Glover Teixeira first signed with the UFC, everyone kept pointing at him as like a future contender for Jones. And then at the press conference, hyping up his fight against his first fight against Gustafsson, everyone kept asking him about Glover Teixeira, and then he beats Gustafsson, and then he goes, I want to fight Glover now. So if people keep asking about Johnny Walker, and then Johnny Walker wins an impressive fashion again, it's going to be Johnny Walker, just because everyone keeps bringing it up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Johnny Walker if he gets a win. I mean, Corey Anderson has been putting up a really impressive body of work as of late, so beating him is definitely will put him in a good spot. And look, John Jones is looking for big fights. He's looking for fights that fans want to see. That's one of the reasons why he hasn't been calling out anyone from his weight class. But I think if Johnny Walker does what Johnny Walker knows what to do, knows how to do best, I think he'll catch a lot of eyes, and there'll be a lot of momentum behind that fight, and he'll say, come on, let's do it. I think Johnny Walker has a great shot.
Yeah.
And Dom Reyes, on the other hand, he destroyed Chris Weidman, looked good, but again, I don't think John Jones is very interested.
If Weidman had beaten Dominic Reyes, I think it'd be a no-brainer that Weidman would be fighting John Jones. Sure. But that didn't happen. Dominic Reyes is calling out John Jones, but isn't Johnny Walker taller than John Jones by like an inch or two?
Maybe.
So that would be one of the first. Dude, It'd be one of the first fighters John faces that is taller.
He's
than him.
6'5",
and John is 6'4". I think Gustafsson might be the same height as John. I don't know, but I know everyone keeps asking John Jones about Johnny Walker, so I think that's the fight that'll happen. Casey wants to say something. I know that.
Going back a second, when we did this whole who else are bad motherfuckers in the UFC, why does no one mention John Jones?
Because I don't know. I kind of put him as the
goat.
Well,
because he actually kind of goes against what we think is a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
But yet he wins. I mean, I know why, but I think it's very interesting that we don't.
It depends.
The fact that he's not going, I'll fight whoever. He's going, I'm only going to fight the guy that makes me the most money, even though I'm the champ, even though I'm just supposed to fight the #1 contender. It doesn't matter for me. I think. Sorry.
I think obviously every UFC fighter is a bad motherfucker just because, look, you're getting in. Your profession is to beat other people up. Your profession is to literally get good at fighting. That's pretty badass. But we're talking about this definition as far as what's on the line is the BMF title, right? This Saturday. I do not think John Jones fits that. Again, this is a guy that's very calculated. We've seen some fights that have not been very exciting. He's done just enough. For him to get the win. Not any risks, because every time you're fighting, you're taking risks, but not take risks enough just to cause damage. Look, I'm up on the cards. I'm winning. I'll just do enough to get the win, and that's completely fine. That's also your job, is to win fights. But this is a guy that cares about his record. This is a guy that cares about winning and losing, about keeping his belt. Whereas Diaz and Masvidal, their priority is to fuck you up, then it's to win.
He's also turned down fights on short notice because it didn't, when he was offered Chael Sonnen on short notice. He goes, nah. I need a whole camp. I need to prepare. And then he did take that OSP fight on short notice. Wasn't his greatest performance. But he's one of those guys that, won't fight whoever, needs a camp, he's calculated,
And which is fine. It's completely okay.
And adding to that BMF list, Thiago Santos is a bad motherfucker. That dude sees some crazy stuff in his life. I was talking to a Brazilian reporter, and they're like, "You seen that movie, like City of God, City of Gold, or whatever?"
Yeah.
He's like, he's from that
you do.
area. So,
yeah,
Thiago Santos, City of God. Thiago
movie.
Santos is a bad motherfucker.
When you're talking about John Jones and Santos, I think I just realized a part of the bad motherfucker criteria that we're missing is go back to The Wire and think of Marlowe when he said, "My name is my name."
I've never seen The Wire.
We're talking about your name and
sure.
how much your name means.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of what Nate Diaz and the whole supplement thing, it wasn't about, he was always going to fight, but it was always about his name and his legacy. Not about the paycheck, not about winning or losing. It's like, I'm a fucking bad motherfucker. I'm a fighter. I'm not a cheater. I think Jorge falls into that category too if he would have got one of those tests too. He would have kind of been in the same, like, fuck this, you know? I think that is a really important factor. Your name outside of the cage. Your name when you're walking in the streets.
People's, how you carry yourself. They also walk around with like an entourage of like 30 people all dressed in black. So that's a bad motherfucker. Oh, I got to add Vicente Luque to that list because in UFC, when the UFC was in Arizona, before he came to his post-fight scrum after his fight with Brian Barberena, he had like blood on his head and he used the blood as hair gel. He was like, "This is great," and he's like pulling it back. But he's like, "The blood acts like gel." I was like, "Good God, man! It's the most metal thing I've ever heard in my life."
Gustavo Quintiliano would like to know, how will the BMF title be presented on Saturday? Do you think, if Nate wins, will he say "and still the baddest motherfucker"?
100%.
And do you think they'll actually say "motherfucker"?
They definitely will say "motherfucker" because it's going to be on pay-per-view, so I don't think they're going to have to worry about ESPN or any of that thing. The Rock is supposedly going to put it around the winner. I think he's going to present it on Friday. I'm not 100%, but Nate will definitely say "and still" because he said that at the press conference in New York. I think you were in Tampa for when that happened, so you're going to be there. But I don't know if you did you watch that whole thing?
Oh wait, the one with the Masvidal?
Yeah, the New York one?
I was in Mexico.
Yeah, you were in the Mexico card. When Nate said this is going to be for the inaugural like BMF title, Nate just goes, "Nah, I defended it," and then this is going to be me defending it, and then Dana laughed and then corrected himself, and Masvidal thought it was funny, so he's definitely going to say and still. But supposedly the Rock's going to wrap it around the winner's waist, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the presentation looks and. Because that's part of, like, look, they're stepping into some uncharted territory by making this title. I mean, this is the very first in the UFC, a title outside, the regular title that we're used to seeing. So I'm curious to see if they actually make a thing about it and have this whole presentation. I'm curious to see how the belt looks.
Do you think they come in on championship weight?
Is that even a thing?
I don't know. Every time I try to ask Dana.
That's a good question as well. Well, no, according to... I forgot who, but I think somebody from our site spoke to the commission, and they're actually not considering this like a title fight. It is going to be a 5-round because all main events are 5 rounds, but this is not a sanctioned title bout. So I do think they should have that 1 pound allowance.
Yeah, because bad motherfuckers don't recognize sanctions, man.
Yeah. He's going to come in underweight.
Yeah.
165. What if they both came in at 165 and they're like, this is the 165-pound championship? And that's Nate Diaz does something else to change the game. The CBD, the USADA, and now he just makes the 165-pound. Like, he can do whatever he wants. Like, it's going to happen. I hope that happens.
In the comments on the live chat, Pulse Reloaded would like to know if you think The Rock will do the eyebrow.
I hope so, man. The people's eyebrow. He's got to do it. I can't do it with the right eyebrow, but he's got to do it.
I don't know. I feel like that takes away from the moment.
Yeah, The Rock.
Give the belt. Look, you're the baddest dude in this company. And that's that.
I hope he does. I was a big Rock mark back in the day. He gave me the eyebrow and told me to take a hike when I asked for his autograph once when I was like 11. Was never more starstruck in my entire life.
Does he come in as The Rock, or is he coming as Dwayne?
No, he's The Rock, man.
He's The Rock.
He's Rock Johnson.
All right. Let's get on to another question. Now that I can't pronounce Luigi? Whatever.
Let's make it up.
Now that there have been a plethora of men's bantamweight bouts announced, can you break down what is at stake? Do they give Faber a title shot with the win over Jan? And is also at 135 really going to be a thing?
Apparently.
Yes and yes to both of those. I think if Uriah Faber beats Peter Yan, Henry Cejudo will fight. Will most likely fight Uriah Faber. But then the Marlon fight is a weird one because if Marlon wins, he's not going to get another title shot. It's a fun fight, and I really like that fight. Casey's grimacing over here for whatever. He hates that fight. They should swap, honestly. I think Faber should fight Marlon and
Faber Aldo.
Faber Aldo 135. That's a good point because they fought at 145 at WC. Why not? Yeah, just do it. It's like, I mean, I like that fight anyway.
I feel like if you make that fight. One of the big reasons why Aljo and Peter Yan, one of the reasons why they're not getting a title shot is because Cejudo's out, right? But one of the reasons why they weren't front runners in the beginning to begin with was because they didn't have a big name to put them over. Yes, we beat Pedro Munoz. Yes, they've picked up legit wins, but in the eyes of the casuals, right, they didn't have the Dominic Cruz name, the Uriah Faber name, right? That's why those guys are still in the conversation. By doing the opposite with Aldo and Uriah Faber, if Peter Yan wins or if Marlon wins, you're kind of putting him over. Like, look, you just beat a legend. You're kind of. So I think they both need each other. Or the legend gets a legit win, and you can justify the legend getting a title shot.
Or they might just give it to Frankie Edgar at 135. Or Dominic Cruz is out there too.
Who knows when Frankie's going to make his debut?
I want Dominic Cruz to fight Frankie Edgar. I just like that fight.
I think what's at stake here is what they're doing is just making matchups and. There is no plan. Let's see what happens. Let's see. Look at the BMF fight. There was no plan for this. It's just it happened. This carried momentum. It was the biggest thing to make. It was the obvious move. So that's how they go about it. Imagine if Uriah Faber picks up a huge win and all of a sudden he has a crazy call out and something happens with Cejudo in the crowd. All of a sudden that's your fight or with Aldo, etc. So it's just kind of like let's see what happens type deal.
Yeah, because I want to see José Aldo even make 135 before we even talk about this.
That's going to be... I'm a huge skeptic about that, and I'm concerned. I think he could potentially make 135 once, but again, a sustained run. We saw Pettis make 145, twice, was it?
We saw...
but it was clearly nothing that was sustainable. So can Aldo make 135? Yes. Can he stay at 135? That's the bigger question. I don't think so.
Like Diego Sanchez at 145.
Exactly.
Real bad. He looked awful. So, or even Conor McGregor at 145 looked like he was going to fall apart. So I don't know. I agree with you. If he makes it once, I don't think he makes it again, especially on a quick turnaround. But I think the thing Uriah Faber has going for him is I think he's the only one fighting in that circle that Cejudo called out, because he also called out Garbrandt. He called out Garbrandt, Frankie Edgar, Faber, and Dominic Cruz, and Uriah Faber is the only one with the fight books right now. So if he beats Ricky Simone, like he did, if he beats Peter Yan like he beat Ricky Simone, how do you not give it to him? Yeah,
exactly. This is a fight to justify Uriah Faber getting a title shot, because Peter Yan is legit. He's a top contender. If you bid him, you should be fighting for the belt.
And they're gonna use that video of I don't even think it was before Henry Cejudo even made his MMA debut. It was him and Uriah Faber was like, Henry, come here. This is my friend Henry Cejudo. He's an Olympic medalist. He thinks he might go into MMA, guys, and it's Henry Cejudo's 23, 24. So they're gonna use that clip of Uriah Faber introducing Henry Cejudo to the MMA world.
Full circle.
So basically, no way Yan gets anything from this fight.
No,
because he just beats an old guy.
No, but he beats a name.
Depends on how he beats him.
He beats a name, and look, that's kind of what he needs at this point, right? Because we know he's legit, so he's not going to prove anything that we don't know, and he just needs a big stage and a big name and a highlight reel enough to create some traction in order for him to get a shot.
Who did he beat? He beat.
Because look, if Marlon beats José Aldo, you're not going to make that again. You're not going to run it back. So, clearly Yan would have his golden ticket there.
Yeah. And then Aljamain is still on the shelf, so he's also a player you can insert into that.
So there's a second part to this question, actually. Is it promotional malpractice not to book Edgar versus Cruz?
Yeah, I've been saying that for years. I wanted that fight 6-7 years ago. Yeah. The footwork in that fight would just be off the charts. I mean, even when Frankie was the 155-pound champ. Remember when they had that champions panel with all the champions up there, and Frank Edgar was right near Dominic Cruz? They weren't that Dominic Cruz was taller than him, or they looked the same size. I'm I want that fight to happen. That was 2011, I think. So we're 8 years later. I still want that fight to happen.
Yeah, ideally that's a pretty good fight, but we still don't know. I mean, what's the status with Cruz? Has he even put out a return date? I think he's still dealing with injuries, right? Yeah. And those injuries are lingering, right? So who even knows if he actually comes back? And with Edgar, we haven't heard much about a potential date for him wanting to get down to 135. I mean, the last time I heard Edgar in the headlines was him begging for Conor McGregor to fight him, basically. but it looks like that's not going to happen. So I think again that conversation is a little premature, given that we don't have much information.
Yeah,
on
Frankie
this.
still hasn't even made 135. Like he's like,
Yeah.
I can make.
But
I can make it.
I've
He'll
seen him
make
in
it, no
person.
sweat.
He's not a big dude. I'm sure he can make it.
But I also asked him at that Dominance MMA media day, like, because he wants the Conor fight, obviously, but he wants he's.
You're supposed to Frankie.
Yeah, he's gonna try. He wanted a deadline because if he's gonna make 135, it's gonna be a process.
Of course.
But if he's gonna fight Conor at 155, he's gonna try and
Yeah.
bulk up. So he's kind of in this weird phase where, say he fights Conor at 155, he goes up. But if he goes to 135 and fights Dominic Cruz, he's gonna have to cut down. So he's in this. He wants to set a deadline. He said, but he didn't give me an exact date.
Yeah. If we see Frankie this week, we'll make sure to ask him that, because it looks like the Conor McGregor fight is not happening. So
definitely not happening.
What are his plans moving forward?
Because apparently Conor even offered to donate his purse to charity, which I don't think is true either. But that's another story.
Yeah, to this Proper 12 charity, I heard.
Yeah, right.
Wait. Go back. What did you say? What's not happening?
The McGregor Frank Edgar fight.
Oh, okay.
Because that's not happening. He wanted to fight him in December on a 3-round fight. Dana was like, "No, you're gonna headline, dummy."
Okay, just checking, because apparently apparently in an interview with the Schmo just now.
Yeah.
Dana confirmed.
Just now. Yeah, that was
Just
yesterday, right?
Yeah, or yesterday.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dana confirmed the date. So
For
for Conor.
Oh yeah, it's gonna. Conor,
which is the 18th, right? January 18th.
It's like January or something. It supposedly comes down to Gaethje or Cerrone. I think the Cerrone fight is so dumb right now because
really
Cerrone's lost to he's lost to Gaethje, and who did he lose to before that? He's on a 2-fight losing streak, right?
Ferguson,
right? So those are 2 fights that Conor could have, and he's taking the guy that lost to both of them.
Connor's coming off a loss as well,
Sure.
so you pair, usually losers with losers, right? And winners with winners. I think that makes sense. And look, if you want to get more fights out of Conor McGregor, you gotta ease his way in. And I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody, but if you, I mean, obviously I wouldn't fight anyone, but if you were to tell me to fight Justin Gaethje or Cerrone, I'd probably go with Cerrone.
Here's my thinking: the UFC is going to book Cerrone versus McGregor because historically, he did not like when I asked him this, but Donald Cerrone does terrible against southpaws. He does awful against southpaws. Whenever you fight southpaw, I lean heavily towards the guy he's fighting. Conor's a southpaw. Donald Cerrone has all of the records in the UFC. So if Conor beats him, they're going to be, he beat the guy that has all the records, and they're not going to even talk about his last 2 losses. So I think that's what they're going to try and do. I also agree with you. The Justin Gaethje fight is a terrible idea for Conor McGregor, but I kind of want that fight for Justin Gaethje because he deserves that fight. If Habib, he should be fighting for the title after Tony Ferguson and Habib. So I think the Gaethje McGregor fight is awesome, and if Conor beats Justin Gaethje, you could make an argument he deserves a title shot after that.
Yeah, of course.
So
that is a big if. I don't know. I really I'm more towards the Cerrone one.
I understand, promotionally.
Plus Cerrone, I'd like to see him get a nice fat payday. I think he has I think Gaethje has a little bit more life left in the sport than Cerrone does at this point. He's just been around longer. So look, if your days are coming to an end here in the sport, get that big money fight.
Then who does Justin Gaethje fight?
That's what happens when injuries, when you skip the serving contenders, when you make fights that are not supposed to happen, right? At title fights, this is a problem that the UFC brought upon themselves, and someone's gonna get screwed over. That's the fact.
Didn't Poirier just have surgery too? So it's not like he's gonna be out for a bit.
Look, ideally, in my opinion, you keep Conor McGregor away from the title. Why? Because it's going to be first of all, I don't think he beats Habib anytime soon. We saw that fight; it was not competitive.
I don't think he beats.
Second of all, him with the belt is a problem because he's going to want things, whether it's stake at the company, and there's going to be some maneuvering going on with the belt that's going to put the belt on ice. Contenders are going to get screwed over. Look, there's plenty of top contenders that are willing to fight for the belt. Have Conor McGregor be kind of in that money weight. Have him fight Donald Cerrone. Then have him take on the winner of Diaz-Masvidal. Just keep him busy. Have him doing fun fights. And that's how ideally I'd like to see him. And look, if he picks up enough fun wins, then maybe you go for a title shot. But right now, Ferguson needs that shot. After that is Gaethje.
It'll probably be March, right? I think that's when Habib wanted to return. So we have to wait for March, and then which means the winner of that, if they do fight Gaethje Gaethje's getting basically set up for a whole year.
Yeah.
So doesn't want it. Yeah, exactly. Casey's annoyed right now. I don't want a year without Justin Gaethje in my life.
I'm mad at you just talking about this.
I know. I want Justin Gaethje to fight every single. I'll watch Justin Gaethje fight this Cameron. I'd be excited to watch that. So, but like, who else is out? Like, I don't want to watch Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. Like, I like that fight as a high level martial arts fight, but like that fight doesn't do anything for him except keep him busy. Just a placeholder fight. I mean, I hate those.
That's the problem with the way things got handled at lightweight, and someone's gonna get screwed over. Like, whatever course of action you take, or what the UFC takes, there's gonna be some negative side effects to it. Whether it's Justin Gaethje sitting out, whether it's putting up McGregor against Gaethje and then have him not ever fight again potentially, whether it's Cerrone not getting that big money fight, whether it's even Tony Ferguson getting screwed over. I don't know, but there's gonna be some sort of adverse.
Don't put that into the ether right now.
Look. At this point, nothing would surprise me.
But it sounds like the person not getting screwed over will be McGregor.
McGregor can fight anyone and make money.
He's the only person that will not.
I mean, he's in a position that he can't get screwed over. Whoever he fights, is gonna be a big fight. Whoever he fights is gonna make a lot of money.
I don't think Khabib's getting screwed over either. I think Khabib's.
I mean, he's the champ. He can't. No. I mean,
he's got to fight Tony Ferguson. I don't want to think about any other fight for either of those two men. It's like you guys were at UFC Vancouver, and both Justin Gaethje and Donald Cerrone was like, yeah, Tony Ferguson's fighting for the championship. Like, that's it. I know Ali at the media day and Justin Gaethje, both of them told me that Justin Gaethje deserves the shot over Tony Ferguson. And in my mind, I'm like, shut up. I don't want to hear it. It's Tony Ferguson, Khabib Nurmagomedov. End of conversation. What do we got?
Sorry.
Soylent, sponsor the A-side.
People want, no, you interrupted me with a random Soylent news.
I can't wait for the people. People only listen to this sometimes too. It's gonna be hilarious to hear all this argument.
Arguing.
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying a fact. You weren't queued up.
Oh, okay.
One of the comments going through the chat a lot is, because it's happening this Friday, the press conference, people want to know about Colby Usman. What you guys think? Who's gonna win? Blah blah blah.
I don't know who's gonna win, but that's the fight that makes sense. I mean, even Darren Till was like, say what you want about Colby Covington, he's still a good fighter, and he's a rightful number one contender. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Maybe not the most exciting fight. Like, people obviously care more about the BMF championship, but it's the fight that makes sense, and I am looking forward to that fight regardless.
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's the right fight, as you said. I mean, Colby's I think 7-0 in his last seven bouts, and he's beaten guys like Robbie Lawler, Demian Maia, right, RDA. So there's no doubt he clearly deserves that. So that was the right fight to make. This is such an interesting fight because it's kind of the opposite of what we're seeing with the main event of UFC 244 in the sense of two guys with kind of opposite styles of the guys that are fighting, and for some reason, the fan base has more of an appetite for this type of fight involving Diaz and Masvidal than they do for the actual what's considered the best fight, right? Because it's involving the two best guys in the weight class. So I think there's something to be said there about kind of the appetite of the MMA fan base today. It looks like we're going more closer to boxing every time, which is more of the show. And again, the excitement and the actual which two are the best. So yeah, I think it's a fun contrast that we're getting between this main event and the main event at UFC 245.
And it's weird because this fight we're going to see on Saturday, everyone, like you see in the poster where it's like the censored was the parental advisory logo, and everyone when the press conference went off, everyone was like, "Don't let your kids watch this. Don't let your kids watch this." The Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz have an immense respect for one another. Like they're not going to talk trash.
That's another.
On the flip side, Kamaru and Colby Covington despise each other, and they're going to talk all the trash. Yet people are still more interested in Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz, regardless of the no trash.
These two matchups couldn't be any more opposite as well. Even in the making,
even the stylistic way that they fight,
exactly. Even in the making of the actual fight, this fight with the BMF belt, it came together super naturally. While this other fight, I mean, Colby's deserved the shot for forever. It was forcefully. I mean, they even tried not to make this fight, right? The initial talks were Masvidal versus Usman. So a natural fight that came together versus something that you kind of forced together and finally made it. But yeah, in so many different angles and perspectives, these two fights are completely the opposite of each other.
And Kamaru, it's gonna get ugly. Like Kamaru says, he wants to beat up Colby Covington for all like the immigrants of the world. Like it's gonna turn.
Oh, it's gonna get ugly. Yeah,
it's gonna be real ugly.
Covington, I think, the more he gets into his character, and people hate on him, and he's getting good. Whether you like to admit it or not, he's getting good at what he's doing. I remember when he first started, his sentences were off. His phrasing sometimes didn't make sense. He would say things that just didn't make sense at all. He's starting to get good at his shtick. And while he's also getting good at it, he's also exploring new frontiers and barriers, right? We saw when he beat Robbie Lawler and he mentioned the Matt Hughes things. Each time he's getting, he threatened to slap his boss with the belt, right? Dana White. Each time the dude keeps pushing the line, he's getting into beef in the gym, right? The gym energy is, not the greatest between him and Masvidal.
I think it's Colby versus everyone because like Joanna wants.
Yeah, no, there are some guys that like him. I was at ATT and I saw some people say what's up to him, and there are people that like him at ATT. I also witnessed. I don't want to get too into it because it's a little bit off record, but I also witnessed. Yeah, it's camp. I also witnessed Masvidal arriving at ATT while Colby was leaving, and that was interesting. So yeah, each time is just he's kind of pushing the boundaries. So I know, as you mentioned, it's gonna get into some ugly territory as far as the trash talk.
And everyone thought
between
this
Usman
fight on Saturday would be the one with all the.
Oh no, this is the chillest fight. This is the
chillest fight. Like the press conference was real weird. They talked about like veganism and all that stuff and Scarface.
That was like one of the worst press conferences in the history of the UFC.
That was the worst press conference in all of sports I've ever seen in my entire life.
That was horrible.
And then they just stared down, and that was a wrap. And I'm like, I love
it. And honestly, I know this is like super off topic, but like. This fight kind of needed the whole USADA thing that happened last week, because if you look at all the interviews, it was kind of like the same redundant questions because they're not going to talk shit about each other. There are no layers, no new storylines. It's like, all right, you two are fighting for the BMF belt. How do you feel about that? Did you ever think this moment wouldn't come? You guys have been fighting for a long time. It was kind of like just, not that much of a build-up, and I feel like it needed that. I know it's a little bit random off topic.
It reminds me of the Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz fight. Like, they didn't talk any trash. That was just a fun fight. I loved that fight, too. We got, hopefully, oh, man, if Nate Diaz lays down in front of Jorge Masvidal, does the paint me like one of your French girls poses, I'm in on that.
I actually really appreciate that they're not trash talking.
I agree.
I think it proves that doesn't need to exist to sell a fight, which helps actually de-escalate some of the really ugly trash talk.
And Masvidal has been a huge proponent of that. He's like, look, I can talk shit if I want to, but at the end of the day, like, the reason why this fight proves, and I asked him that in Mexico, and he spoke to it in lengthened Spanish. He's like, this proves that you just need to be a bad motherfucker for people to want to watch you fight. Like, I don't need to. This fight sells itself. Like, this is ultimately like what fighting is about. Like, you should be excited to watch me fight, not talk. So again, this is an example, and he hopes that this fight with Diaz. It's funny. It's almost like if he's like being like a teacher and setting an example for the fellow students, which is funny. Students of the fight game.
It's gonna be an interesting time for sure.
Let's just go off here a little bit on the side. A question from SJY.
Long-time commenter.
Yes. Can you give a grade to Bellator and UFC and Rory on his free agency? Did he meet Bellator expectations in terms of revenue and ratings? And then did the UFC miss out on not re-signing him?
I don't know about the revenues and ratings things, but like he became champion, so it's not like like he became champion and lost to he beat and lost to arguably the greatest Bellator fighter of all time. I think it comes down to Douglas Lima and Patricio Pitbull as the greatest Bellator fighters ever. Michael Chandler's like in that category too, but Pitbull obviously knocked him out. And then he lost to Gegard Mousasi, who was at the time middleweight champion, one of the greatest fighters who ever lived. So I think in terms of like his actual competition, he lived up to the hype. He became champion, for crying out loud. The revenue and everything, not sure, because it's always hard to gauge Bellator when they stick them in these random cities on these random dates,
right?
And all that stuff.
I think I think you're right in the sense that he checked the boxes right when Bellator signed Rory MacDonald. The first box that they wrote him, or at least the fans and the media wrote on him, was this dude needs to become champion. This dude needs to headline fights. This dude needs to be a big face, a big name for the promotion. He checked all of those. But I kind of like barely. I think most people expected Roy to be a lot more dominant, given the fact that he was an elite, like really top fighter in the UFC. Coming over to Bellator, usually there's that perspective that the top UFC guys are going to wreck in Bellator. Roy had some things in his life that I think played a big factor into that, happening. So did he meet expectations? Yes, but I think he didn't surpass that. Again, what's even going to be the future with him moving forward? Again, his career in Bellator was a weird one. It's a very weird one, but he did check the boxes.
Yeah, he also he found God. So that was the John Fitch thing was a weird one. Yeah,
he's been, and it's interesting because the way I don't know. I talked to him, for example. I talked to Lima. He's also a big believer in God. I think he has like a Bible verse on his Instagram page. That's how I realized he was a big follower of Christ, right? So then I asked him, did you have those same reservations when you became a Christian about your fighting career? And he said, yeah, it was tough at first, and he kind of agreed with what Rory's is going through. But then when I look at him, I kind of don't see the same thing I see when I look at Rory. There might be something else to it. Maybe I'm reading more into it. I don't know, but it just seems like Rory's clearly a different fighter. He's still a very good fighter, but just not the fighter he once was.
I think it's, in my mind, Rory MacDonald's career is before and after that second Robbie Lawler fight. I don't know if he physically ever recovered from that fight, because the next fight,
a big one, yeah.
He lost to Stephen Thompson, and then
his nose was a big problem, which hasn't been recently. But
yeah,
still.
So I think in my mind it's before and after, because I remember leading into that Robbie Lawler fight, that Demian Maia fight, I think it was at 171, 172. I can't remember the exact event. That was I loved that fight. Yeah. That was a very exciting
fight.
Demian
was up on the scorecards, right?
Yeah,
I remember early.
Yeah, even the first Robbie Lawler fight was really good. I think that was at UFC 167. That was the GSP Johnny Hendricks card, and Chael and Rashad fought the co-main event. So all those fights was really exciting. Yeah, the Jake Ellenberger fight was kind of a dud, and the very next fight they booked him against Robbie Lawler, if I remember correctly, and Robbie Lawler won the first time too. So in my mind, it's before and after the second Robbie fight.
Yeah, I think that's a key factor as well. There's a bunch of factors as well. I think something that Dana has always alluded to was there's only so much fight you have in you, right? And how much fight did he actually give out in those performances, where now that he's stepping in the cage, he still has all the skills that he's developed throughout the years. Yes, he's still a world-class fighter, an elite mixed martial artist, but does he have that dog in him, right? It's tough. It's tough to go back to those places and dig real deep. You can only do that so many times.
He only has one finish in Bellator when he submitted Paul Daley. All the other ones were...
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I don't understand this whole... He's not the same fighter anymore. When he's always been that fighter.
Yeah.
People just choose not to. They just ignore the fights they want to ignore. Like when he fought Tyron Woodley.
I love that, but he dominated that
right.
fight.
Tyron Woodley, but we didn't go. Oh, he didn't finish Tyron Woodley because he loves God.
It just seems that
he's always been the same. But he's just more honest, and he's actually talked about regretting being honest to the media.
Yeah, but see, in that type of performance with Woodley, he wasn't forced to dig deep to get a victory. You know what I'm saying? Whereas he's been put in some situations in the UFC in his past where he's been, because nobody wants to get into those type of wars unless you really have to, right? Unless it presents itself. But when the option was offered to him, or when the option presented himself in a fight, he did have that escape to, okay, let me bite down on my mouthpiece and dig deep. Whereas here, it seems, he can have those type of performances, very clean performances like the Neiman Gracie, Tyron Woodley. But when the fight gets dirty and when the fight gets tough, it doesn't seem like he has that same grit in him.
He said he also...
What about the Lima fight, the first one? The first one.
That was an unbelievable...
The first one.
Both guys nearly died in that fight.
Yeah. That was an amazing fight.
I think... choosing to ignore some things that happen.
I think what I was referring to...
No, for sure.
What I was referring to is after that John Fitch fight, he said he had reservations about physically hurting another human being. And if you're a fighter, that's a big problem if you don't want to hurt someone. Because he's like, it's hard for me as a Christian to want to physically assault another human being for money. That's pretty much that's in my mind. That's the big change.
I've heard a lot of fighters actually say that, but the fact that he associated with God is why people
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's also, again, this is still very early. Lima said it took him a while. He said it's tough at first. It took him, maybe it's a transition period. Maybe it might take a few fights. Maybe this is the Rory that we see moving forward. I don't know. I guess time will
I
tell.
have to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Okay, there's been some news.
News. Is the Darren Till news?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I heard Darren Till got his visa issue squared away.
Yeah,
So-
his visa issues are squared away, but he'll be late, so he won't be at the media day or the open workouts. Just so you know.
Rats.
He will be available to interview after ceremonial weigh-ins on Friday.
Sick.
He's not coming until late tomorrow.
So just like, I imagine it's going to be like a big scrum of everyone.
Yeah, it's funny because the UFC sent out a press release and it says due to a delay in travel, but Brett Okamoto had already tweeted like 45 minutes ago that it was a visa thing. So
Yeah. I mean, we've been hearing about that visa issue for a little while. Like,
I mean, he's good. He's got a criminal record, so
yeah, that's a problem.
Wow. Jesus, throw him
This is fighting, bro. This is for if the headline is for the BMF championship.
Yeah,
I talked
you can't
about
be on this card without a criminal record.
Yeah.
Jeez.
if you don't have one, if you don't have a mugshot,
Yeah.
take a hike. Beat it, nerd.
Kelvin just pushed over some old lady.
Kelvin's
Jaywalk.
Kelvin's got time to do something.
So do you think that that'll affect the fight?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
I think if it was at 70, it would present issues because look, you're traveling. We know travel takes a toll on the weight cut, but since it's at 185, he should be okay as far as those things are concerned. But don't forget, Anthony Johnson, when he was fighting at 170, when he stepped up to 185 to fight Vitor Belfort,
In
he
Brazil.
missed weight by a lot. So you would think like, okay, just because you're going up a weight class, you should be
Or
good with the
who was the
weight
fighter
issues, but-
in Manny Bermudez missed weight? I think it was him. He missed weight and the Phoenix
going up
card.
a weight class above.
He missed weight against Benito Lopez and Phoenix and won, and then remember they made the fight against Casey Kenny a 140 or like a 150 or something like that, or I can't remember the weight class, 140 catch weight.
Yeah.
And Casey Kenny was like, it wasn't because of me. And the next fight they made Manny Bermudez go up, and he still missed weight. And it's from Boston.
Yeah.
It's like where he's from, so who knows? The weight
Yeah.
cut thing is always going to be weird.
Fingers crossed because that
Or-
home event is nice.
People forget Jorge Masvidal's first fight at 170, I believe, was against Cesar Ferreira on the card after UFC 189. That was headlined by Wonderboy and Jake Ellenberg. It also had Michelle Waterson's UFC debut. Jorge Masvidal missed weight. He came in at like 172 because he said he kind of overestimated him being able to make, and he got to Vegas and he goes, I want in and out. And then he ate in and out and missed weight by like a pound.
Yeah.
And then still knocked out Cesar Ferreira with like a standing elbow. So very weird scene in that. That was like in front of like maybe 30 people.
Okay, we got a question from Sexy Panda 69.
Sick.
Who will be challenging the winner of the BMF belt?
Conor McGregor. The Conor McGregor will fight the winner. I think it's a no.
So what's this Cerrone Gaethje talk then?
Because Conor believes, I think that regardless, the winner will fight that Conor.
Maybe it depends on who wins as well.
Nate
Nate Diaz
do a non-title main event then.
Yeah. Because Conor, Nate, you need the trilogy with Nate is there. So if Nate wins, that's a no-brainer. I think if Nate wins, they don't even entertain the Donald Cerrone fight. They just go Nate Conor 3 for the BMF championship. And then Masvidal too. Like Masvidal is keep saying they're not gonna let me fight him, but that's just they're gonna let him fight him. So I think they want to see how the fight plays out, and if someone comes out healthy, the Donald Cerrone fight, Justin Gaethje fight is out the door, and the winner fights Conor McGregor.
I think it depends.
January.
I think there's a difference between Diaz and Masvidal. Diaz clearly gives zero Fs about actually fighting for the title. He has no interest in that. I don't think he has a whole lot of interest as being all that active. And when I say all that active, as far as actually getting several fights in a year, so I don't think the belt is even on his mind. It's just getting big fights. Whereas Masvidal, on the other hand, he cares about the money. He's gonna get paid this weekend, but he does care about the belt. That is kind of important to him. I spoke to him. He's like, I want all the belts. I actually want to fight for the title. And look, he also doesn't like
except the Intercontinental belt.
Right. He also not the he wants the real, not the one being disputed at 245. But he actually wants to fight for the belt, and also he doesn't like Covington. If Covington were to win that title, I'm sure he'd love to get in the octagon with him. So I think it depends on who wins. I think if Diaz wins, I think it's a no-brainer to do the Conor fight, and hopefully that's the fight that does happen. So he doesn't throw a wrench at lightweight. And as Masvidal wins, I think he'll have both options in front of him, and I think it'll be just him and his team deciding on what's best.
In this crazy scenario, Masvidal also wins the welterweight championship and then fights Conor McGregor, and he walks out with 2 belts. Who knows? It's a whole crazy thing with Conor. Conor McGregor throws a wrench into freaking everything, man. He just gets to do whatever he wants.
All right, it's been about an hour.
Anything on Twitter? Because people always come at me about skipping Twitter questions.
No, because if for the A-side tag, right?
Some people just respond to the actual post. Like if you go to like the MMA fighting tweet, people like will just reply.
Oh, okay. Well then, Laz Nikolovsky would
Sick.
like to know, gents. You were pushing it away from me. This is live, man.
Guys, don't fight.
I was wanting the mic out of your mouth. That's what I was trying to talk.
This is live.
Guys, don't fight.
With the upcoming pay-per-view and stacked card beneath it, do you think this pay-per-view will do $1 million?
No, not in the ESPN era. I think the
244?
Yeah, this one on Saturday. He's asking if this fight will do 1 million buys, and I don't think it's even going to come close. I think the days of 1 million pay-per-view buys are out the door for a while. I think when Conor McGregor fights, that will be the telling of how much this one could do. Because I think UFC 240 241 was like the first successful pay-per-view ESPN Plus had, where they had like 300, 400 pay-per-view buys. Because it's all you have to pay
241.
Yeah, the Nate Diaz, Pettis, the DC, Stipe one. So it's I don't think this does even close to 1 million buys.
Okay. Not that I'm fact checking or anything, but like where did you see it? Because I haven't seen. That's the thing. As soon as like the UFC went to the ESPN, I honestly haven't seen much reports about actual pay-per-view buys.
I think it was our Uncle Meltzer or someone maybe Dana said. I can't. All I know is someone said 241 was the first like real successful ESPN Plus pay-per-view.
And all the whispers from the managers that they were like, everything's a low.
Yeah. So I don't. And
it's a lot of whispers.
Yeah. So no concrete evidence.
I do. Yeah. I don't know. I'd be just taking a shot in the dark because I don't know what these pay-per-views are getting now that the UFC moved over to ESPN exclusively for their pay-per-view provider. But I will say this fight might be bigger than what we actually like expect it to be. Masvidal, for example, him going to Mexico and actually refusing to answer questions in English and address all the Mexican media that were there, and we're talking about like all the top media from Mexico was there, and just addressing that whole demographic in their native tongue. I think this fight taps into like a lot of markets and big audiences. So
Nate Diaz, Chicano.
Yeah.
Now people never add like people always talk about like Tony Ferguson, Henry Cejudo, Tatiana Suarez, like Kelvin Gastelum. Nate Diaz represents Mexican Americans pretty well too.
I feel like he doesn't rep though. Like,
no,
he doesn't
but
come
I'm
out with
saying
the
like
Mexican
he
flag.
doesn't rep, but like my family, like my Hispanic family, completely associates with Nate Diaz. Like, because Jorge Masvidal is obviously Cuban, but they go Nate Diaz, Chicano. We gotta root for him. So I think people don't talk about that enough. I know Stitch Duran just talk about that all the time. He'd like talk about Nick and Nate being these representative for the Mexican American community.
I don't know. This fight's big, man. When I was going to Mexico, the lady that like helps you like check the bags in. I had so the way like. Whenever you check out equipment from Vox, they put in a tape with a job code. So mine was like UFC Mexico something. And she's like, "Oh, you're gonna cover the UFC fights." Oh, and then she kind of recognized me a little bit, and then she went on to say like, "Oh yeah, me and my husband are trying to get fights for the UFC 244 card, Masvidal." And like I was just like, "Whoa," like. That doesn't happen. Like I don't know. I usually don't get that.
I got tweets about people from Glasgow trying to fly into New York.
I mean, I have friends asking me, like people that don't know about MMA. Hey, so these guys, Diaz, Masvidal. This fight's big.
I think The Rock being there is going to be a big deal. Donald Trump supposedly going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard Secret Service is already like scouting out MSG for all that kind of stuff. So. Very eclectic demographic.
I mean, we're going to be there, MMAfighting.com.
MMAfighting.com.
That's when it's a big event, obviously.
Yeah, we have 4 staffers at this event. That's how you know it's big.
Cuatro, represent.
We out here.
Cuatro, that's 4 in Spanish.
Yep, it is, Casey. Tell me more. What comes after Cuatro?
5-0.
No. Where are you from? I bet you're from Houston.
The fucking World Series champs tonight, please.
Please. Who are you saying please to?
Gods.
You've changed. You've
God of
changed.
baseball.
Oh my god, they lose 4 home games. Oh my god, first time ever.
Casey might not be able to cover
I
UFC
know.
244.
Yeah, I know he might not. All right.
The last time there was a card here, didn't Houston win?
They won.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
They won. I watched it. Mark Armando here.
I guess who won last year? Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
Represent.
Let's turn this.
Yeah.
turn
Okay.
off.
Let's wrap this up now.
All right, so that's it for the A side. I had a great time with Danny Segura. We actually got to do the, as Esterlin called it, the extra live A side live chat. But for Jose, this is Danny. This will go up on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, all that fun stuff. We're here at UFC 244, so actually just stay on the YouTube channel because we're going to go to open workouts tonight, media day tomorrow, ceremonial weigh-ins, official weigh-ins, The Rock press conference, UFC 245 press conference, and of course, fight night. You'll hear both of our lovely voices. Casey will be manning the camera. Esther will be doing what she does better than anyone else on planet Earth, taking some amazing photos. But for MMAfighting.com, the team out here in New York, we're out. I'm going to kill it.